in the voice of Bishop T.D. Jakes, my brothers and my sisters, let me teach this today, not just preach it, because there's a generation coming up who thinks if they ain't linked up, if they ain't booed up, if they ain't partied up, then they missing out. People often confuse being alone with being unwanted. We've grown up in a world that tells us that if no one is calling your name, then you must not be valuable. If you're not surrounded by people, then you must not be loved. But that's a lie, a cultural deception, because the truth is, God often takes his greatest students into the quietest classrooms. And if you're feeling alone right now, don't let the silence fool you. You're not being forgotten, you're being formed. See, there's a difference between isolation and preparation. God does some of his best work when no one else is watching. Think about it. When God wanted to shape a prophet, he didn't send him to a crowd, he sent him into the wilderness. When he wanted to prepare Moses, he took him out of Egypt and put him on the backside of the desert for 40 years. Not 40 days, 40 years of obscurity, solitude, silence, but what looked like delay was actually divine development. What felt like rejection was really redirection. That's why you can't always trust your feelings in your lonely season. Your feelings will lie to you. They'll tell you nobody cares. They'll tell you it's over. They'll say you're behind, but God is saying, I've got you hidden for a reason, because I'm doing something in you before I do something through you. This is the season where you stop performing and start transforming. In the classroom of loneliness, the applause is gone. The audience is absent, and all that's left is you and God, and now he has your attention. Don't fight the solitude, learn from it. You see, loneliness reveals things that busyness hides. When you're alone, your wounds talk louder, your thoughts echo, your insecurities bubble up. But that's not a curse, that's an opportunity. That's the place where healing begins, because you can't fix what you won't face. And you won't face it until the distractions are gone. Let me break it down for you. Some of you keep running from being alone because you're afraid of what you'll hear in the silence. But what if that silence is God's invitation to hear him? What if loneliness isn't punishment but positioning? What if being alone is the only way God could get you to stop performing, stop pretending, and finally confront the truth? So many of us have become addicted to the noise. We keep people around not because they add value, but because they keep us from dealing with ourselves. But that's not health, that's hiding. You don't grow when you're constantly surrounded by clapping. You grow when you're confronted by quiet. You grow when you sit with yourself long enough to say, Lord, search me, heal me, break what needs to be broken, and build what needs to be built. This is the season where God is not interested in popularity, he's interested in purity. And purity requires pruning. It requires removing things and people and patterns that no longer serve your purpose. And sometimes that process will leave you alone, but don't mistake aloneness for abandonment. You're not alone because you're unloved. You're alone because you're in transition. You're not where you were, but you're not yet where you're going. That in-between space is sacred, it's holy, it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. This is the season when God teaches you that your value is not in who calls you. It's not in who likes your posts. It's not in how many texts you get. Your value is in who created you, and he says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And when you start to believe that, something shifts. You stop begging to be noticed. You stop compromising to be kept. You stop tolerating what's beneath your calling just because you're afraid to be alone. You start walking like someone who knows who they are, and you start thanking God for the season that taught you that. Let me tell you something, there is revelation in the isolation, there is wisdom in the wilderness, there is clarity in the quiet. You may not have a crowd right now, but what you do have is a cross, and that's enough, because Jesus himself endured the cross alone, but he did it for a cause, and that cause changed the world. So if you're in a season of loneliness, don't waste it wishing it away. Ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? What is God trying to show me about myself, about my patterns, about my priorities? Because this is not a wasted season, this is a working season. God is digging beneath the surface. He's tearing down the false foundations. He's uprooting what's not of him. And when he's done, you won't just come out of this season happy, you'll come out whole. Don't despise the classroom of loneliness. Sit in it, learn in it. Let God shape you in it. Because when he brings you out, you'll be stronger, wiser, clearer, and more connected to your purpose than ever before. There's a truth that many people run from because it feels uncomfortable. If you cannot enjoy your own company, you'll never be satisfied in anyone else's. Too many of us are searching for fulfillment in another person when we haven't yet made peace with the person in the mirror. The reason you feel restless in your relationships, uneasy in your friendships, or constantly disappointed in your connections may not be about them, it may be about you. Not because you're unworthy, but because you haven't yet discovered the divine strength that lies in knowing how to be with yourself. Let me talk to somebody who's afraid of their own silence, who's afraid to sit alone in a room, who keeps the music up, the TV on, the texts flowing not because they need entertainment, but because they're avoiding engagement with their inner world. But until you turn down the volume of the world, you will never hear the whisper of your own soul. There's something powerful, something sacred about being able to sit with yourself without distraction, without pretending, without apologizing for who you are. Because it's in those moments that true healing begins. We were not created to be validated by crowds. We were not designed to constantly need someone else to say, "You're good enough," in order to believe it. The truth is, you must become comfortable enough to look in the mirror and say, "I am enough even here, even now, even alone." Not because you're perfect, not because you've figured everything out, but because you've accepted that happiness is not something you pursue through people, it's something you cultivate in the presence of God and in the honesty of yourself. The reason many people struggle in relationships is because they're entering them with broken mirrors. They've never seen themselves clearly, so they're looking for someone else to reflect back what they want to believe. But baby, if you don't love your own presence, your own thoughts, your own company, all you're doing is inviting someone else into your confusion. You cannot expect someone to hold you together if you're unwilling to hold yourself in the first place. Self-company is a lost art. We've been trained to depend on external affirmation. But let me teach you something spiritual here. Your soul craves alignment more than applause. You can have 100 people cheering you on, but if you don't have peace in your private moments, it will all feel empty. You can be surrounded by people and still be miserable because you've never made peace with yourself. That's why the first relationship you must repair is not with a lover, not with your ex, not even with your parents, but with yourself. Ask yourself, when was the last time I enjoyed my own company? When was the last time I took myself out without feeling awkward or ashamed? When was the last time I turned everything off and just checked in with my heart? If you don't remember, then this message is for you. There is dignity in solitude, there is healing in stillness, there is restoration in reflection. When you learn to enjoy your own company, you no longer settle for company that confuses your worth. You won't allow people to mistreat you just to avoid being by yourself. You'll stop saying yes to things that drain your soul just because you don't want to feel lonely. Because you'll realize loneliness is not the absence of people, it's the absence of peace. And peace is found when you align with purpose, and purpose is often born in solitude. It's in the stillness that God whispers your next assignment. It's in the silence that your soul begins to realign. And once you fall in love with your own presence, once you appreciate your own mind, your own rhythm, your own walk with God, then everything else becomes a bonus, not a necessity. Let me take it deeper. Some of you are afraid to be alone because when you're alone, you're confronted with the unfinished business inside your soul. But that's not something to run from, that's your invitation to grow. It's when you face yourself that you heal. It's when you listen to your tears without judgment that you recover. It's when you say, "I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to learn myself." That transformation begins. You can't become whole waiting for someone else to fix you. You must look yourself in the eyes and say, let's do this work. You must learn how to dine with your soul, talk to your emotions, negotiate with your mind, and comfort your inner child. And once you master that level of self, company, something amazing happens. You stop being desperate for others to stay. Because you realize whether they stay or leave, you'll still have joy. You become the kind of person who walks in a room and doesn't need to be noticed. The kind who can take themselves on a walk and feel full. The kind who finds delight in journaling, in praying, in creating, in simply being. And that's not arrogance, that's alignment. God is calling you into deeper relationship, not just with Him, but with yourself. Because He created you in His image. And if you never learn to appreciate yourself, you're rejecting the masterpiece He made. So today, I challenge you, don't be afraid of yourself. Don't be afraid to sit alone, think alone, heal alone. Discover the power of your own presence. Because when you finally see how rich your soul truly is, you'll understand that some seasons of solitude were not punishment, they were protection. And in that sacred space, happiness is no longer a chase, it becomes your natural state. If you've ever asked God, "What am I here for?" then you need to know that the answer doesn't usually come in the middle of noise. It rarely arrives when you're surrounded by people, distracted by validation, or trying to impress the crowd. No, purpose is delicate. Purpose is divine, and purpose is often whispered in the wilderness. It is in solitude, in silence, in sacred isolation, that purpose is most often conceived. God does not shout destiny over noise, He whispers it in quiet. And if you're in a season right now where you feel disconnected, where the phone is not ringing like it used to, where the invitations have slowed down and the crowd has disappeared, don't panic. Don't assume something is wrong. Maybe you're not being punished. Maybe you're being positioned. Maybe God has pulled you out of the circle to plant something in you that could only be born in secret. Look through the scriptures and you will see a consistent pattern. Great purpose does not begin on stages, it begins in secret. David was anointed king not in the palace, but in the pasture. Nobody saw him out there with the sheep. Nobody recognized him while his brothers were lined up for the crown. But while they were seen, David was shaped. He was alone, but he was becoming. He was unknown, but he was being prepared. Because purpose doesn't need public validation, it needs private formation. And that's the mistake many people make. They want the assignment without the alone time. They want the platform without the pruning. They want the influence without the isolation. But the truth is, what you carry is too important to be rushed. What God is developing in you requires space, silence, and solitude, because some things don't grow under lights. Some things only grow in darkness. Just like a seed must first be buried before it can bloom, so must your purpose be planted in stillness before it can emerge in power. You don't see roots grow, they grow underground. You don't hear a seed crack open, it does it quietly. But without those invisible shifts, the visible fruit would never appear. So if you feel like you're in a buried season, don't curse the soil. Thank God for the dark, because it's where destiny develops. Solitude is not something to survive, it's something to steward. It's not dead space, it's divine space. That's where God clears the clutter from your mind and reveals what you were really born to do. That's where He separates your identity from your image. That's where He strips away performance, people, pleasing, and pressure, and teaches you how to walk with clarity. Purpose is not just about what you do, it's about who you become. And becoming takes time. It takes silence. It takes letting go of every voice that told you what you should be, so you can finally hear what God says you must be. And that kind of clarity is only birthed in solitude. Think about Moses, raised in Pharaoh's palace, trained in the best systems of Egypt, But it wasn't until he fled to the wilderness and spent 40 years tending sheep in the middle of nowhere that he received his true assignment. The burning bush didn't appear in Pharaoh's courtroom. It showed up when he was alone on the far side of the desert. Because the wilderness is not a mistake. It's a method. It's not wasted space, it's sacred preparation. When you're alone, you're forced to confront what you really believe. You can't hide behind noise. You can't fake your way through quiet. And in that raw, honest space, something begins to rise in you. Vision gets clearer, priorities get sharper, your calling becomes louder, and you realize that the solitude wasn't empty, it was essential. Some of you are so busy trying to escape your alone season that you're missing the assignment that's being handed to you in it. You keep praying for God to send people, but he's trying to send purpose. You want company, but he's offering clarity. You want to be seen, but he wants you to see yourself. There are things you're called to build, create, write, lead, but the blueprint for them is locked inside your solitude. You won't find it in the crowd. You won't download it from the internet. You won't stumble upon it through social media. You'll hear it when you sit in the stillness and say, "Lord, speak. I'm listening." And in that quiet, he will begin to draw up your assignment. The reason some people never step into their true purpose is because they never slow down long enough to hear it. They keep chasing things that don't fulfill, running from discomfort, trying to avoid solitude, but what they don't realize is that purpose is often hidden behind the very silence they fear. Don't waste your solitude trying to escape it. Steward it, use it. Ask God to reveal to you what you're meant to do. Ask him to peel back the layers of pressure, comparison, and expectation and show you the seed of your calling. And trust this, when it's time to come out of the solitude, you won't come out empty. You'll come out ready, equipped, purposed, focused, because what was formed in private will fuel you in public. So if you're in a season of solitude right now, stop asking, "When will this end?" and start asking, "What is this birthing?" Because God never sends you into solitude without sending something into you. Purpose is not just discovered, it's delivered. And your delivery room may just be the very place where you've been sitting alone, wondering if anything meaningful could ever come out of it. It can, and it will. One of the greatest deceptions of our generation is the belief that happiness begins when you find someone else. We are taught from a young age that we are incomplete until we are connected. The movies show it. The songs preach it. The world tells you that you need someone to complete you, but let me challenge that. Let me speak into your spirit with truth. You are not a half waiting to be made whole. You are not a fragment seeking another fragment. You are not broken merchandise looking for someone to fix you. God did not create you as a piece, he created you as a whole. When God made Adam, he didn't give him Eve immediately. He gave him identity first. He gave him responsibility. He gave him purpose. He gave him dominion. Adam was whole before he was together. He was working, naming, cultivating, ruling all without needing someone to validate who he was. And only after he had walked in that wholeness did God say, "It is not good for man to be alone." Because God does not want you to lose yourself in a relationship. He wants you to bring yourself into one fully, confidently, clearly. But what happens when you enter relationships without wholeness? You turn people into bandages. You use them to cover the wounds you haven't healed. You start needing them to feel valuable, important, worthy. You become addicted to attention because you haven't yet found peace within. And now, instead of loving them, you are leaning on them. Instead of choosing them, you are clinging to them. That is not love. That is survival. You cannot be healthy with someone else until you are healthy with yourself. You cannot give what you haven't learned to carry. And too many people are walking into relationships hoping someone will rescue them from their loneliness. But if you are not content alone, you will not be content together. Because relationships don't fill your soul, they reveal what's already there. Hear me, if you are single, don't waste this season trying to escape it. Use it, build in it, heal in it, discover who you are when no one else is clapping. Discover what you love, what you value, what your boundaries are, what your vision is. This is your chance to get whole. This is your time to develop emotional maturity, spiritual strength, mental clarity. Because when you become whole, you stop chasing the wrong people. You stop settling for halfway love. You stop losing yourself in the hopes of being accepted. Too many of us confuse loneliness with a lack of worth. Just because no one is calling you doesn't mean you're not called. Just because no one chose you yet doesn't mean you're not chosen. God is more concerned with your becoming than your belonging. He's preparing you to bring something to the table, not just take from it. When you are whole, you don't enter relationships out of desperation, you enter them with discernment. You are not starving for affection. You are not aching for attention. You are not willing to shrink, compromise, or contort yourself just to keep someone. Because you know your value, and when you know your value, you don't chase people, you attract purpose. Let's be real, a relationship can only rise to the level of the least healed person in it. So if two broken people come together hoping to feel complete, what they find instead is conflict, confusion, and codependency. But when two whole people come together, they don't need each other, they choose each other. That's the difference. That's what makes it last. That's what makes it healthy. You must be able to look in the mirror and say, I am good with me. I love my own company. I know my strengths. I'm working on my weaknesses. I have vision. I have joy. I have peace. And then when someone comes along, they are not completing you, they are complementing you. They are not rescuing you, they are walking beside you. You are not depending on them for your worth. You're already rooted in who God says you are. And let me say this, wholeness is not perfection. It's not about having it all figured out. It's not about never having scars or struggles. Wholeness means you've faced yourself, you've sat with your pain, you've asked hard questions, you've forgiven what hurt you, you've released what hindered you, you've invited God into every corner of your soul. That's what makes you ready not for love, but for life. Some of you have been praying for God to send the one. But what if God is waiting on you to become the one? What if this season is not about who's missing from your life, but what's missing inside of you? What if God has pressed pause not to punish you, but to prepare you? Stop asking, why am I alone? And start asking, what is this season trying to teach me? Because when you come out of this, you won't come out empty. You'll come out anchored. You'll come out full. You'll come out ready to love without losing yourself, to give without being drained, to walk beside someone instead of being dragged. That's what wholeness does. It gives you power not over people, but over your own soul. And when you carry that, you won't just attract love, you'll attract alignment. You won't just find a partner, you'll recognize your purpose. Because wholeness always precedes togetherness. And when you're whole, you won't need someone to complete your life. You'll just need someone who's ready to build it with you. There is a kind of joy the world can't give you, and therefore, the world can't take it away. It's not based on who stayed or who left. It doesn't depend on your relationship status. It's not tied to attention, affection, or applause. This joy I'm talking about, real joy, sustaining joy, comes from within. It is not something that enters you from the outside. It is something that springs up from the inside, and until you realize that, you will keep depending on people to give you what only God can provide. So many of us are walking through life emotionally bankrupt because we've placed the weight of our happiness on other people. We think, if they call me, I'll feel better. If they choose me, I'll be happy. If they affirm me, I'll feel important. But when you give people that kind of power, you're also giving them permission to control your peace. You're handing your joy to someone who was never meant to carry it. Let me teach you something important. Joy is not a relationship benefit. Joy is a soul condition. It doesn't fluctuate like emotions do. It doesn't rise and fall with the approval of others. It isn't seasonal. It's spiritual. That's why some people can be surrounded by others and still feel empty, while others can be completely alone and still radiate light. It's because joy has nothing to do with what's around you and everything to do with what's within you. When your joy is rooted in God and anchored in self-awareness, no one can rob you of it. People may walk away, but your spirit won't collapse. Opportunities may pass you by, but your worth won't decrease. Because when joy lives inside of you, you no longer treat life like a search party, you treat it like a celebration. You're not begging for someone to bring you sunshine, you are the light. But hear me, if you don't discover the source of your joy, you will keep draining yourself trying to find it in others. You will keep performing for love. You will keep exhausting yourself in relationships that were never meant to carry your soul. And over time, you'll begin to believe you are hard to love, when the truth is you've just never taken the time to love yourself first. You see, real joy comes from knowing who you are. It comes from waking up and saying, "I'm proud of me." It comes from standing in front of the mirror and affirming your own worth. Not because someone else said so, but because you know so. Joy shows up when you've made peace with your past, when you've stopped comparing your path to others, and when you start embracing the beauty of your now. And let me tell you, the enemy will do everything he can to distract you from discovering that kind of joy. He will use loneliness to make you believe you are lacking. He will use rejection to make you question your value. He will use silence to convince you that something is wrong. But you must fight back with truth. You must remind yourself, my joy is not in their presence, my joy is in His presence. My joy is not in their words, my joy is in God's word. My joy is not in the hands of others, it is in the hands of my Creator. You don't need a person to validate your beauty. You don't need a partner to prove your purpose. You don't need followers to affirm your calling. You are already enough, already worthy, already whole, and when you begin to walk in that truth, when you stop waiting for joy and start choosing it, everything changes. Suddenly, your days feel lighter, not because they're perfect, but because you're not chasing peace anymore. You've become peace. You're not desperate for affirmation, you are your own encourager. You're not haunted by what left because you've made room for what's coming. That's what joy does. It lifts you above the temporary and grounds you in the eternal. But here's the part most people miss: joy is not passive. Joy is a decision. You must wake up and choose it daily. Even when you're overlooked, even when you're by yourself, even when things aren't going your way, joy says, I will not allow my circumstances to dictate my state of mind. I will praise Him anyway. I will smile anyway. I will grow anyway. I will rise anyway. You've got to water your own garden. You've got to speak life over your own soul. You've got to learn to clap for yourself when no one else is watching, because joy is not waiting for a crowd. Joy is born when your soul says yes to peace, yes to contentment, yes to gratitude. So stop searching for happiness in hands that were never designed to hold it. Stop waiting for someone else to rescue you from your sadness. Stop putting your peace on layaway, waiting for a relationship to deliver it. Instead, go inward, go deeper, connect with the God who formed you. Commune with the version of yourself that's been buried under insecurity. Sit with your thoughts, honor your emotions, celebrate your growth. And from that place, that holy, sacred, powerful place, you will discover that joy was never lost. It was just waiting for you to stop looking outward and start listening inward. Because joy is not given, it's revealed. And once you've found it within, you'll never again beg the world to bring it to your door. You'll carry it with you wherever you go. So now that we've walked this journey from understanding the strength of solitude, to embracing our own identity, to discovering purpose in the quiet, to becoming whole before seeking connection, to learning that joy flows from within, I need you to hear me clearly. You do not need to wait on anyone to start living. You do not need to postpone your joy, your purpose, or your growth until someone else shows up to validate your worth. You are not on pause. You are not behind. You are not overlooked by heaven. You are in process, and God does some of his greatest work in people who walk alone with him before they ever walk beside anyone else. Don't you dare think that being alone means being unloved. Don't you let silence make you question your value. Your solitude is not a sentence, it's a sanctuary. It's where your strength is built, your vision is formed, your roots go deep. And when your roots go deep, the fruit will come in due season, not because you chased it, but because you were ready for it. If you can be happy alone, you will never again settle for less just to feel momentarily connected. If you can find peace within yourself, no one will ever be able to disturb it without your permission. And if you can walk this life with God as your source, then whether people come or go, you remain steady, secure, and strong. So rise up today with a new mindset. You are not lacking. You are not waiting. You are not missing anything essential. Everything you need to live with joy, purpose, and power is already inside of you. Now go live it. Go grow in it. Go shine in it. Because being alone is not the end of your happiness, it might just be the beginning of it. God bless you.